Toronto Meetup group. MS Excel Toronto Meetup group. That's the name of our meetup group. Let me share my screen while I share some usual information, especially for those who are new with us today. So this session is being recorded. Be aware of that. We are using Teams, and later our video will be posted on YouTube, where the Excel Toronto Meetup group has a channel. Also, for all of you who registered, you will receive an email. I hope my camera is not too. You will receive an email with the link for that video and the files that I will be using today. So if you want to practice or review them, you will be able to do that. Please make sure to keep your cameras and mics off, or especially the mics. And cameras during presentation also can help with bandwidth. I don't know about you, but just this week we went back to lockdown here in Toronto, and the kids are at home attending school throughout the day, all day long. We are working from home, and I could see the difference in the internet speed. So, but that's the signs of our times. We are learning to deal with that. So just let's keep staying together. If for some reason one of us drops from the connection, Teams should keep recording. Even if my internet for some reason fails, I will be able to join right after. You just need to stay in the online for a little bit. Okay, let's hope that doesn't have to help. Doesn't happen. Some information about the next. So this is today's event, and then we have 2 more sessions prepared for January. Functions in Power Query. In fact, Dick Moffat, he was mentioning today that the title should be changed to custom functions, because there's a lot of functions in Power Query. He will be talking about custom functions that we can create in Power Query. And data validation, a backdoor to Master Excel. Nabil Murad, he wrote a book about this topic. So imagine how much he can tell us about data validation. Try to think of what you know of about data validation, and most likely all of us will have something to learn from Nabil about this topic. So if you can attend or watch later the recording, it will have a lot of content. Same thing with Dick Moffat. Both of them people very experienced in the market, many years of building solutions and teaching. Some announcements, some of you are aware already, but just for those who may not be aware, there's an event coming up soon in February. A lot of presenters from around the world. It's probably one of the largest Excel events that has happened so far, just specifically about Excel. And this event was initially supposed to happen in London in 2020 April. Then it was postponed for this February. At that time, we were still hoping that the event would happen in person, but then, as you know, it's not possible. So the organizing team just moved on to making the event happen online, and there's a lot of features. We have this platform alive, very promising. There will be conferences. There will be a free area where everybody can enter, where sponsors, different types of, let's say, stands will be represented, like if you were attending an in-person event and there was this space with a fair, all Excel related. And then there's different activities, there's presentations, and the first 2 days and other 2 days with master classes. And you can attend both types of presentations or just one type, just the master classes, just the presentations, depending on what you prefer and what the type of ticket that you decide to purchase. If you are interested and haven't bought your ticket yet, you can use this code Celia dash 10% to get 10% off of your um, of your ticket. And I think that's it. Only letting you know, if you want to share any comment about this event today on your social media, feel free to do so, because the more people we reach, the more awareness. And that's exactly the topic of the session today, is to create awareness. It's not so much of exploring very complicated or very advanced functionalities of Excel or Power Query. Is mostly about giving an opportunity to people to know about Power Query and to learn what they can do with it. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing for a little bit. Going to take this screen out. And let's go and start with the presentation for today. So like I said, the purpose today is to create awareness. Also, would like to tell a little bit about the group before we start, to those who are new here. So these sessions are the group was created about 1 year, 2 years almost, 1 year and a half. It was in first session, May 2019. We were gathering monthly, once a month in person on a Microsoft store back in Toronto, at a mall here in Toronto. When the pandemic time started, we moved on to online, and that's how we've been staying like that. And that has given us the opportunity to open the group to more people around the world. Anyone, although it's Toronto's meetup group, anyone in the world can join. And anyone in the world can present. So if you think you have something that you would like to share with the community, please feel free to step forward, just get in contact with me, and we will see if there's a possibility for you to present. It doesn't need to be a full 1 hour. We could do a session maybe with just small presentations one of these days, just an idea. For this month, we already have content. For February, there's content already being prepared in March, aligned with different speakers. So I think it's worth to just keep an eye on our agenda and see when a topic is interesting to you, and feel free to join us either live or watching the recording. And again, people who register will always get the files by email a couple of days after the session, if there is files to share. Okay, so let me share my screen. If I'm forgetting something, let me know. I'm kind of confused here with being the two roles at the same time. Usually I'm just the host, and today I'm a little bit of both things. Okay, so here's our session for today. A little bit about myself, for those who may not know me yet. I'm originally from Portugal, where I lived until 2013. My academic background, my studies were made there. I got a degree and a master's degree in both in mathematics and in education. I was a mathematics teacher in high school for around 20 years, 19 years to be more precise. And then in 2013, I moved with my husband and my kids to Alberta in Canada, and then 2017 to Ontario. When I moved, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I kind of had the feeling that I didn't want to start a career, high school teacher's career from scratch. I had done that anyways, and I've been always very curious and very, uh, I always like to use technology. And long story short, at some point, Excel came as an opportunity to me when I realized that there was demand for people skilled in Excel. And I was at a place where I had the opportunity. I was forced to learn because I was at a company that put on my hands their needs for improving their procedures. And um, starting from there, and then after that, when I kept developing different Excel solutions to different companies, I realized that I recently realized that what I've been doing mostly is about automating reports or statements generation. So tasks that usually consume a lot of time when people do it manually. And a lot of people do these tasks manually because they don't know how to do it differently. And the session today is exactly about Power Query and how Power Query can help people and organizations saving time, saving money, producing better reports, producing better outputs of their Excel work. So that's the purpose today. Still about, I think everything here, I was awarded an MVP this past year in 2020. Was kind of a surprise. I've been working as an Excel expert. I got the certification. I got the certification as well as Microsoft Certified Trainer. So that's my background. And Solvent Excel Consulting is my consulting business, is the name through which I serve different clients. So I've been working since I started in 2000, and I don't have many years of experience. I have to be honest, compared to many other people who have come to present to our group. So I've been using Excel. I remember the first time I got in contact with Excel, my first seminar as a teacher, my first year as a teacher, 1994. So, and I was using Excel since then, and for 20 years without even knowing that VLOOKUP existed. So that's my story. And so if I was there 5 years ago, and if I'm here today teaching you something of what I've learned in the past 5 years, for sure, any one of you, if you are not feeling so confident, any one of you can improve your skills this year and better, and you just have to keep curious, being curious, and take the opportunities to learn and to implement. Always save some time to improve your skills and to learn something new. Okay, what are we going to talk today? These are basically the contents for today. What is Power Query? For those who don't know, like I said, this is not one very advanced session where people come to learn special amazing tricks like we have had the pleasure of getting sessions like that throughout the last year. All of them are recorded. You can just go there and take the opportunity to watch what it interests you the most. Like I said, just today it's about the basics. What is Power Query? Where you can find it? When makes sense to use Power Query? And two examples, that very simple examples, just to get those of you who are new to this tool being interested enough and feel comfortable enough that you can learn something, that you can try, and that you can achieve something. Okay, it's very easy to achieve good results with just a little bit of knowledge in Power Query. Did I miss it? No. Okay. So what is Power Query? Well, It is an ETL tool. ETL stands for extract, transform, and load. It was previously named, it was initially Power Query, named Power Query. Then Microsoft at some point decided to call it Get and Transform Data, but users just didn't like that name. We keep calling, we kept calling the tool Power Query, and the tool now is, well, the name was put back to Power Query. And it's the Microsoft data connectivity and data preparation technology. So it is a tool that allows the user to connect to where the data is, connect to data sources, and prepare the data the way it needs to be prepared, reshape it maybe, so that then it can be consumed. It's a no-code user experience. It offers a no-code user experience, meaning that you can do a lot of amazing things without having to write one single line of code. But it does, in fact, have a code language behind it. It's an M code language. And if you get acquainted with that language, you can do even more better things with it, with Power Query. Okay, moving on. So this is in the Microsoft Docs website about in one page about Power Query, and it says business users spend up to 80% of their time on data preparation, which delays the work of analysis and decision making. Several challenges contribute to this situation, and Power Query helps address many of them. So 80% of their time to prepare the data. It's not analyzing data. It's not thinking what to do with the results that we see in the data. So making decisions, it's time spent on just making data ready to then look at it and then make decisions. It's a lot of time. So Power Query can help us reduce that time and then make better use of our time to make decisions with what the data insights that we get from it, from the data, the sets that we collect. How does it help with data acquisition? Why is Power Query helping us with that? Well, you will see that connecting with data is easy. Power Query offers us the possibility to connect with different types of data sources, but the user experience with connecting with those different sources, the way we connect to those is very similar from source to source. So we get used to how to the interface, and it makes us feel more comfortable with trying new types of connections. And the process, the big thing about Power Queries is third topic here: prepare the data reshaping process once, refresh next time. So this is what one of the main things Power Query is about. Is it's a tool that you can use. You will have the work once. You explain to Excel through Power Query what you needed to do, what you want to be done with the data in the data source. Sometimes it's not very clean, sometimes it's not organized, and you can organize all those steps and have that work done once. Sometimes it's not easy. Sometimes, depending on how the data is and how we need the data to be, it can be a little bit challenging in some steps, not all of them. But once you figured it out and once that work is done, then the next time is all about just make sure the new data is in the proper place, hit the button, refresh or refresh all, and get your data ready. At least for the most, a big part of situations. That could be situations where, well, then I have these many different sources and I have to do these other steps. But in many circumstances, that's what you need to do and what you need to know. Also letting you know that we will be using data sets very, very small. I like to use very small data sets during the presentations because it helps us understanding what's going on what happens to the different pieces of data from one step to the other. If I'm looking at thousands of rows, who knows what's in there? But the reality is, in our daily lives, sometimes we have to, in our work, our jobs, we have to deal with thousands and even millions of data rows. And if that's the case, Power Query does handle that. As you know, in Excel, a spreadsheet has a little bit over 1 million rows, each sheet. But with Power Query, because you don't need to really load the data physically, you can keep it in the data model. That's how we call it, or just as a connection. But if you need to do an analysis, you will have to load it to the data model. We will talk about that later. But just to tell you that Power Query can handle very big volumes of data, and that's okay. You don't be afraid, even if it goes beyond the Excel spreadsheet limits, number of rows. And you can use Power Query to update your data when you want, or you can even schedule to update it every X minutes or hours or whatever. Okay, so that's one of the functionalities you need to be aware. So now I would like to show you some, just talk about some examples where it makes sense to use Power Query. One of the things, and these few examples that I'll be talking first are about streamlining tasks. One of the things is if you need to extract information from one file and apply a specific format or layout. For example, the two tables that you see here in blue and in green, they represent the exact same data, but they are just laid out differently. The first one is in tabular form, and we will talk about that also today. And it's the format we should have to, if we want to analyze data easily. And if, for example, if you want to create some formulas in your spreadsheet to read information from your data, if you want to create a pivot table, then you should have your data laid out in columns, and each column one field. In this case, we only have two fields, name and course. My first Excel teacher, the first course I took in Excel, he used to call these lists the long, boring lists. So you don't want to, we will talk about pivot and unpivoted data in a bit, but just be aware, if you are not yet, that reshaping your data to tabular format is one of the best things one of the first things you should think of when you are looking into analyzing your data. But let me go back. In other situations, and this was not with these exact words and the information, but this reshaping was one of the jobs I had to do a while ago, where a client had a database and they were transferring data from one database to another one, so online platforms. And to upload the data to their new database, that system specifically asked them to have the data shape laid out like this. So it was not about names and course. Well, in fact, it was not these courses, but other courses. They had to have the name of their clients in the first column, and then all the courses, because this company was selling courses online, all the courses that those clients had registered to on the old platform, separated by commas. So there was, in fact, in this particular case, I used Power Query to go from tabular layout to a non-tabular layout. Usually it's the opposite in most cases, but both can happen depending on what you need, okay? Other situations are if you have data from different sources. For example, if you have data coming in to you on CSV format, and you want to combine with another set of data that is in SharePoint or Access or another place, or even an Excel file that you keep with some records about your clients, for example, and you want to combine the information from those two different sources or three different sources, you can do that with Power Query, because Power Query offers you the opportunity to connect to different types of data source. Another situation is if you keep receiving the same report over and over and over. It could be a CSV report, an Excel report, and you need to combine all that information. In fact, that there's an error here in this second picture. The idea was January, February, and then March and April. It should be March and April here. So imagine you have one separate file for each month with sales, for example, and every month you need to gather everything since the beginning of the year, accumulate the data from the different reports. So every month, one new report, and put everything in a tabular format, for example, to do some data analysis. Another very interesting situation that happens sometimes is about cleaning data. If you need to work with data that you copied from online or from another program or system, sometimes they come with all these weird characters, non-printable characters, and you cannot analyze data with that. For example, here there's Sarah Smith written in all kinds of different ways, and by the way, to Power Query, to type, Power Query is case sensitive, so if you type Sarah all uppercase or all lowercase for Power Query, it's two different things. So if you want Power Query to interpret it as the same thing, then we have a tool that says, make these all uppercase, make these all small case, lowercase, and just like that, everything is transformed, and you will be able to get a report, for example, like this one here on the right, where you see that the names came in different formats, but you were able to gather everything, combine everything into just one format, and aggregate all the information. Another important use of Power Query is when you need to merge, to combine different sets of data, cross information between them, or compare lists. For example, you may have two lists and you may want to know what is in one list that it's not in the other one, or what is common to both lists. Or I have list A and I have with some information about my clients, for example, or your products, and I have list B with another type of information. And I want to bring information from second table to first one and then do some kind of aggregation. That's where Power Query is also very useful. And finally, we are not going to explore these today, but after you start getting comfortable with Power Query, what you will realize, so this is what you will probably, if you are new to Power Query, this is probably what will happen. The first few times where you start to creating your solutions, you will try to find ways to combine all the information that you need into just one table. For example, you have your sales, and then you have your client's information, and there's a field there, for example, the country that you need to bring because you want to know how your sales are doing by country. And there's your products, and there's some information, for example, the price that it's or a code with the description. There's another list. The first few times you will try to combine everything into just one table, and from there you will be able to build your pivot tables or your reports. After a while, you will, if you keep your curiosity, if you keep exploring, you will realize that you don't need to do that. You don't need to merge everything into just one big table. You can keep your tables separate and then create relationships between those tables, and being able to bring fields from different tables into the same pivot table. But that's if you are just trying to understand what Power Query is, and this is confusing to you, just don't worry. One thing at a time, you will get there. Other people are already in that stage. I wanted to show you, let's see if I can open this. I'm going to show you very quickly these links, and then you will get the file. Just to tell you information here that's available here that you can explore later. So this is the documentation website by Microsoft about Power Query. It's one of the data sources, one of the information sources about Power Query. They are still, you will find that there's still a lot of features that don't have a lot of content yet, but they are working on making more information available. So what is Power Query? And then you have all advanced, for example, about connectors that we are going to see. All the information is here. And then there's a place where you can find information about the different functions, different features. Anyway, so just to let you know that this is available. Connectors in Power Query. You will be able to see here, these are all the data connectors available at the moment. Access, Adobe Analytics, even Asana, for example, other third-party tools that allow us to use Power Query to connect to their data. SQL, Azure, SQL, all types of different connectors. It's just a never-ending. There's Excel, that's our focus today. Of course, CSV files. You can connect to the internet. You can get data directly from internet. You can connect to your Outlook Exchange account. So I'm not going to spend more time here, but you can come later to this link and explore what here could be interesting to your company. There's another thing that I didn't mention here is that this chart is about where these connectors are available for different tools. So we are using Power Query. We are talking about using Power Query in Excel today, but Power Query is also available in Power BI and other Power Apps, other tools, Microsoft technologies. So not all connectors are available to you in Excel. The same way, depending on, I was hoping to have another, let me see if there's another, just a second. There's another link, maybe I missed it. I think it's this one. Here you can see that not all the Excel versions will have the same connectors available. For example, connecting to PDF, that it's also very useful. You can only get it if you have Microsoft 365 subscription. From Office 2016 on, Power Query started to come included in Excel, so it already comes with Excel. Before that, 2010 and 2013, you will have to install it separately, and there's a lot less features. If you are planning to use Power Query, I strongly recommend you that you use at least Excel 2016, preferably 365 subscription if you can, because it just keeps improving and improving and adding more new features. What I also wanted to tell, if you are using Excel for Mac, it's available, but very, very, very limited. Mostly about only refreshing queries, not a lot more than that. Okay. But there's other people here who are more who have more experience than I do with Mac. So if you want to get your input there. And this finally link, it's where you can download Power Query for Excel 2010, 2013. But it says here that the add-in for these older versions of Excel is no longer being updated by Microsoft, okay? So just be aware of that. Okay, so now let's go to some examples. The first example, just going to change here, going to even turn off my camera, it's easier. just not to make sure Excel runs, everything runs well. And here we want, we have one Excel file, not to Excel, CSV file. And let's imagine we receive this file periodically. In fact, this file that I'm using, it's a file that I found online, available online. It's about cameras, has information about cameras. But let's imagine we work at a place where we have access to a similar list of products every year or every month, and we need to keep our reports updated. So I'm going to show you, let me bring my data here. Just a second to be able to get my folder here. And this is the folder we have now. If you have trouble with seeing, maybe it's too small. If that's the case, we can bring the magnifier and maybe we can. Is it not working? Just a second. For some reason, it's not letting me. Oh, there you go. So here we have this file, the camera CSV, and then the purpose here is to do our reports, to create these file cameras reports. I just had a glitch here with my other monitor, so I'm going to turn that off. Okay. I'm going to show you beginning and end, and then we will build the file, the cameras report. Is it opening? Try again. Okay, it opened on my other screen. Let me bring that to you here. When we open that CSV file, this is what we get. Who of you has ever had to deal with something like that? And it's just so disappointing when we open. Sometimes CSV files, we open them and they behave well enough in Excel and they go one column for each field. Other times they don't do it. It just comes to us like this. So in the first row is where we have the fields listed, and usually, so CSV is comma separated value. Usually we have, not usually, if you are working, for example, like I do in North America, the separator of fields is comma because the decimal point for us is dot. But if you are in Europe, for example, where the comma is the decimal separator, then you cannot use comma to separate fields because then you won't know if the comma belongs to your value or belongs to separate or is about separating fields. Anyways, so this file comes with semicolon separating fields, and we have many fields here at the top, and then each row is one record, and we have model, it's up to here, and then release date is the next, and so forth. And we need to make sense of this information. And here is what we have and what we will be building. That looks much better now. We have a table, we have our brands and models organized, we have the year and the price, and that's all we need, because what we want to build is we want to build this table here, pivot table with in the filter we have the year, and then we have models and the minimum, average, and maximum price for each one of the cameras.
Just one thing, if you can show CSV file one more time, because some users are still here.
Okay, so let's go back. Thank you for letting me know. I've seen that there's a lot of things happening on the chat, but I cannot, I haven't been able to pay attention yet. And now my screen kind of disconnected from there. Anyways, So let me in fact take my screen out of there, because then I'll be able to see my chat on my other screen. Okay, there you go. So you want to see the CSV file. This is our data source. What is specifically the question about the CSV file? What are people concerned about it?
No, one of the user was telling they cannot see CSV files, so they just wanted to see.
Okay, so this is how the data is available for us. And if you need to ask something about it.
We didn't see the format of the file, so right now we can see the format. So
exactly. That's the format, yes. And it's not a pleasant one. And if we try to do like this, you will see that everything is contained into just column A. Sometimes, depending on CSV files, on how they are produced, sometimes we get when we double click. In fact, let me show you another thing if you are not used to CSV files. A CSV file is a text file. And by default, if we double click on it, usually we have our machines set up to open CSV files with Excel. Maybe your system is not set up like that, but that's the standard. But if you go right click and open with and do Notepad, let me bring this to you here. This is in fact what a CSV file is. It's a text file. And the data comes separated by a comma, or in this case a semicolon. And then the first row indicates the column headers, so the names of our fields, of our data. And then each row has a different record. And so in between semicolon, there's the value for the corresponding value field that we have on the first row. Okay. And so the CSV files are offering us data in tabular format, but it's in text, laid out in text, okay? Okay, so let's close that. And from there, we want to build this. Just pick up these 4 fields and then build a pivot table out of there. That's the goal here. And what Power Query does, for those who are not, okay, so what's so great about Power Query? Well, just being able to go from that format to this one is already something, because it's so much cleaner and pleasant to look at data like that now in Excel, organized in Excel. But another thing is, if we go to our CSV file, I'm going to just make a change there. I'm going to create, so you see this AGFA ePhoto. I'm going to create something that says AAAA, assuming that there was a brand AAAA. And I'm going to save this. In fact, I should have done this on the text file, but hopefully this will work anyways. So now if we refresh, my data source is not properly set up. That's fine. So we'll do the test. We will do the test when I create the file again. Okay. So that we don't lose time. So what happened there is that when I created my query, I had the file in one place, and then now I moved the file, and I had not planned to show this part of refreshing the data now. We will show you just after. Okay. So this is our scenario. Let's bring Excel. Let's start a new file here. New file, Microsoft Excel. And I'm just going to put here final report, so that we know the file we are working on. And we want to create that same report that we had there. Let's go and do what we need to do. Okay, and maybe if it is difficult for you to see, let me know, and I'll try to use the Zoom, okay? So data, get data, or I can use from text CSV file, or I can go from data, from file, from text CSV, because my file is a CSV file. If it wasn't, I would go data, get data from Excel. And I just need to find my file here. It's in here. Oh. And when we do this, we get this screen. I'm going to minimize this a little bit. So we get this screen, and this step may be different. If you are connecting to an Excel file, it would be different. In this case, it gives us some details here about the CSV files. Usually what comes here by default that Power Query already guessed is correct. So let's not worry about that. And let's just transform data, because we don't want to load the data as it is. We don't need all those columns, okay? So we get, this is open. This is the Power Query editor. We have Excel behind it. If I try to go to Excel, it doesn't let me. That's how Power Query is working so far. In fact, we don't like that. We would like to be able to go to Excel when we are using Power Query as well. But currently, that's how it works. It's not possible. So it opens a new editor, and this is Power Query editor. We have different tabs here at the top, and we have some of the buttons show in different tabs, and they may seem to be the same thing, but they are not. So for example, in transform, I have a button that says, let's say, where is it? Extract. I was trying to find extract. I cannot see it there. If it is, I see it on pivot format. Sometimes I just get blind. Let me go like this. Oh, there you go. It was hidden. So for example, this button extract is available, and others are available here, and also available in this other tab that says add column. It does two different things. If you use it while you are in the add column tab, you will get a new column and keep the old one to where you are applying the extract function. If you are in transform, then you replace your previous column with the extraction transformation. Okay, just a small tip to keep in mind. So we have the columns here, and on the right, so there's already something, right? It's already something. We had that very ugly Excel CSV file, and look at that. Just like that, we didn't have to do anything. We just had to connect to it, and we already have all data separate by columns. Much nicer to look at it. And here on the right, we have an area where Power Query records the steps that we are taking to transform our data. And recording these applied steps is what will allow us to update our data in the end. That demonstration that I just tried to do to give you, and that failed with that error, but we will get there. We can see that Power Query already created 3 steps here. Source, and we can navigate through them. Source gives us, here at the top, we have kind of a formula bar like we have in Excel. And this is where we can see the M codes that Power Query is in fact generating on the back office, let's call it like that, to represent the steps, the actions that we are taking. So at this point, he said, oh, you want to connect to this file, and this is the path to the file where we can find the file. And did some other things related to the fact that it's connecting to a CSV document. So it just decides the parameters for you. You don't need to worry about it, but it's good to keep your eye on the formula bar, because you will get acquainted and more familiar each time with the M codes, and that's how you will be able to learn other things in the next in the future, near future. And just without us doing anything else, Power Query also created 2 other steps: promoted headers and change type. So what is this? Promoted headers is, okay, so if we are in the source, you can see that at the top it has column 1, column 2, column 3, just generic names for columns. And then the field names are in fact in the first column. And it was smart enough to think, oh, wait a minute, this must be the field names. So let's promote the first row to headers. So now the column names have the names we wanted. And trying to be so kind, Power Query already went ahead and changed the type. I like to leave changing type to later. So I'm going to delete this step here. We could explain why. There's different situations where it can be not a good idea to leave this step there. Just accept it for now if you are not familiar that usually, not always, but usually it's good to leave the defining the data type for later. Okay, so we wanted to separate the information on this column that has it has the brand. Remember that data that I changed? I created the fictitious brand called AAA. It's already there. I saved it in the file and it's already reading that information for me. And we want to separate the information, and we are assuming that and this is something that you need to explore depending on the data that you have. But in this case, the brand is always the first word, and then space, and then the rest is about the model. So we can separate this. If you are familiar with Excel formulas, you can think, what formula would I use in Excel if I had to do this in Excel? And you can do that. It's possible to do that. The great thing about it in Power Query is that you apply the same transformation to the entire column, and you don't need to worry if your formulas are going down the column to where they need to be, because your data sometimes has more rows than others. So you just don't need to worry about that. Okay, so let's go and separate our data. And we need to, I want to add a new column, or I want to transform. I want to transform this column into other columns, okay? And we can split column by delimiter. It's also available here, split column in the home tab, okay? Let's go here. Split column by delimiter, and we will say that the space character, the leftmost delimiter, just the leftmost. We don't need all the occurrences, because otherwise I would get 1, 2, 3 columns, for example, here. We don't want that, just 2. And let space, it already guessed. If it was not the space, you could choose something else from here, and then okay. And look at that, we already got 2 separated columns. This one, they were named automatically. And again, there it go, it went and changed the type. I don't want to change, I'll take care of that later, okay? So I'll just delete that step. And here we can just come here and rename and say, this is the brand. And I can come here and rename this, or if I feel comfortable, I can here, I can look at my M code and realize that this is where the new columns were named automatically. So I can also change when I get comfortable. You don't have to do this right at the beginning, but after you will get comfortable, and you will see that you can do this as well. You can also play with the M code in the formula bar. There you go. Change type. Don't do change type. We can do that later. Okay, so now we have the brand and the model. And we just need the brand, the model. I'm going to hold down Control, the year and the price. The year is the release date column, so hold down Control, and then the price, I believe it's at the very end. And I'll just go right click, remove other columns. It's also available on the ribbon. You will learn, depending on it's more, you will learn where to find things in different places. Let's go and rename the column here. This is the year. And, oh, not yet. Year. And here there's the price. And now finally, this is where I could change my data type. Let's pretend I forgot about it. And I say, okay, I'm going to load my data as a table, and then I'm going to create a pivot table with it. So now home, close and load to, close and load to. Let's choose close and load to. The first time you get to choose where to you want to load your data. By default, usually Power Query comes like this, loading to a table, to a new worksheet, but there's a place in the settings where you can change that. I'm not going to show that today, but it's something that you can do if you don't want this to behave like that. And I think I clicked OK and I got, or what happened here? Let me see. I created a connection only. Okay, so if I want to bring this as a table, you can come. I think my default on this account is, on this profile here, is to load as connection only. We can go load to and change this to load as a table. Existing worksheet, let's put the table maybe here, okay. And so that's it. Here's our data, here's our information. If we go to that CSV file, let me open with the notepad, and let's pretend I create a new brand here called BBB, just to prove that my point. I'm going to save and close the file. And so what Power Query does is, the next time you get new data, you just go right click and refresh. And there you go. You have your new information. It doesn't matter if you got more rows, less rows, you will get everything. And it just took what? Less than a second. So you did that work once, but now you are ready to take the advantage of that work, okay? To gather the profits of that work. Let's create a pivot table here. So let's imagine I want to insert a pivot table from the data in this table. Okay. Oh, it went to another sheet. That's fine. We will move it later. And I always forget to choose another place to put the pivot table. And let's imagine we want the brand in our rows, and we want to filter by the year, for example, and we want to put the price. In fact, that example that I had there, we had the price. The requirement was this, but for the purpose of our demonstration today, we didn't even need to do that. Please notice that it's giving me count of price, but I don't want the count of prices. I don't want to count the prices. I want to, if you remember, I wanted to get the sum, minimum, and no, not the sum. I wanted the minimum, average, and maximum price. So minimum. And look at what it did. All zeros. I wanted this one to, so we need to understand what's going on there. This column to be the average. Oh, divided by 0, error. And we wanted this column to
be the maximum. It's not going well for us. Our life doesn't seem to go well. We have the years here that we could filter from, but the pivot table, no, it's not working. So what's going on? It's not being able to calculate because data comes into Excel the way it was defined in Power Query. And because I deleted that step where Power Query was trying to guess the type of data for me, and then I forgot to define the data at the end, it thinks it is all text. And if this information, let me go back here. If this information is all assumed to be text, you see, for example, here, if we enlarge the columns, it's even aligned to the left, which is a sign in Excel that the number is not a number. It's not being interpreted as a number, is in fact text. So we just need to go back, just double click on our query that we have there on the right, and just let's do that step there. We can just come here and decide which data type we need for each column. The brand is text, the model is text, the year can be a whole number, and the price can be a decimal number or a currency. We can use either of these two formats. Or if the price is always a whole number, you can also do that, but usually that's not the case. So now we have this step here, change type. And now let's close and load. Let me bring my table here. Let me just move the pivot table. Let's move the pivot table into this other sheet to put things side by side just to be easier for us. Okay. Okay, so now we have our data here. Notice that the pivot table did not refresh yet. I need to update it here. And now I was able to get my my prices, minimum, maximum, average. We could work a little bit in the way the pivot table is being presented, the number formats and all that. But that's knowledge you need to have about how to work with pivot tables. So we've talked about a few different things here, connecting to a file. If we now replace that file with new data, you just have to do refresh or refresh all and get the data updated. There's one tip that I always like to give, and that a lot of people are not aware, is that since the pivot table depends on the table, you need to make sure that the table refreshes first. And to make sure that happens, you need to come here to right click and then find properties. And then in here, make sure you disable this, uncheck this, enable background refresh. Because if you do this, what you are telling to Power Query is that Power Query can do two things or Excel can do two things at a time. Can refresh your data and at the same time refresh your pivot table. But if your pivot table needs the data on the table first, then you don't want to do that. And if you keep this checked, what you will see is that you need to click refresh all twice. So I didn't show you that, but in here, data, we have the refresh all button. And if you use this button, you will refresh both at the same time, the tables, the queries and the query tables and the pivot tables, okay? But if you want to do everything in the correct order, make sure to take care of that check mark that I mentioned there. Okay, any questions? I've been talking and talking and talking. I feel sorry for the teachers because it's kind of weird to speak by ourselves, just looking at the computer and not seeing the students. It's just so awkward. Let me know if there's any questions while I prepare my next file for my next example. Is everybody awakened, or I'm sleep? I'm talking to by myself.
Yeah, there are a lot of questions, but I think Audrey and Anthony were answering some of the question, and Richard also joined. So
But most of the questions have nothing to do with your topic. So I don't know why they're.
Okay.
Well,
there was
Okay.
we're
one
enjoying it anyway.
yeah, there was one question at the last by Pat was, why does the BBB show in a pivot table?
Yeah, like, what is
Is
that?
that
Oh, because I created that the BBB. Because at
yeah.
some point I just created that mock. Okay, let me go back. Oh, it didn't show. That's the point. So let me try my. Okay, so let's test that. Let me test what I was saying. I said that if we come here to properties and do enable background refresh, then now the pivot table should update properly. Refresh all. That's weird.
Yeah, we are
Oh,
not seeing
I
your
know why
screen.
it is, because of the filter.
Yeah,
Because we have year filtered here for 97, and the BBB only has 198. So if we come here and filter for 1998, we get the BBB brand, and now we don't have the AAA because the AAA is 1997.
Okay.
Okay. So that was the reason. Any other questions about this example before I close my file?
No,
No?
we don't have.
Okay.
No.
Okay, good. Okay, so the next example is, and the last one is, I'm going to, so a few different things that will
Celia, we
happen
are
here.
not seeing your screen.
You're not seeing my screen. Yeah. Let me
Yeah.
share that again. So let me share the screen again, and what we will see now is an example where, so I tried to bring different situations to help those who are just looking at Power Query for their first time, to try to imagine where Power Query can be useful for them. In this situation, we are going to connect to a folder, and then we are going to combine the files in that folder. Not only that, but the way the files are, it's this folder here. So this folder, sales reports, for now we have 2 months, maybe a little bit bigger. For now we have 2 months of reports, January and February, and they look alike. They are the same type of files, same type of structure, and that is very important, because if you are trying to implement a number of steps, but and apply them to several files, but the files are not organized the same way, then it won't work. And if, as you can see, this data here is organized on it's not in a tabular form. We have a location on the first column, and then it's not repeated down. And then we have the rest of the row is blank. And then we have 3 codes of products here, and then names of sales representatives here, and the quantities they sold of each one of the products. And like I said, I'm using very basic examples, very simple examples, just to make it easier for us to understand what's going on. So we have 2 locations, 2 groups of people names, and 3 products in both locations. And my purpose here would be to get a report with the total sales amount by the sales representative and by the location as well. I didn't put the location there, I think, but we will get the location too. But you will think, well, I only have quantities here. I don't have prices. So I need to find that information somewhere else. So not only we have a folder with separate reports that every month we get a new one, a new file in there. But I also have a separate file that says product prices. And like I said, it's only 3 prices. We have the product ID that codes a description and the price, and that's it. But I need to bring this information and combine it over with the over to the other set of data and combine everything and then multiply quantity times price to get the information I need. So you can start to imagine what this type of situation would be at your work. And for sure, I'm guessing you won't have tables with 3 rows of data with codes. You would have lookup tables. That's what the case is in this for this table. It's a table where you look information about your products. You will have maybe hundreds or thousands of rows. But the process is the same. The reasoning is the same. You just need to be careful and make sure your data is cleaned, make sure you know your data, make sure you understand what's in your data set, so that when you are transforming and applying these different steps, you understand what is going on during that transformation. But you will learn as you start using Power Query. You will learn. You don't need to be worried about knowing everything just from start. Just put your hands to work and do one thing, try, and you will learn. You will get the errors. Oh, and another very important thing that I wanted to mention is that Power Query doesn't touch your data. As you saw, Power Query brings your data reshaped, but the data source is there. It's not Power Query doesn't write back to your data source. So you won't do any the mistakes you will do won't overwrite your data. That's a good thing. Sometimes with the formulas or with VBA in Excel, we could do that mistake and it can be a very serious one. But with Power Query, you don't have that problem. And if it doesn't work, it will tell you right away. You will get those yellow alert messages. You will know something is not right. Most of the problems you will be notified about them. Some problems like not choosing the right data type, sometimes they can be sneaky. There's things you need to be aware, but in most cases you will notice. So there's no big danger with just trying to and start to use Power Query. That's my point here. Okay, so we have those reports and we have a separate file with the prices, and the goal is to get something like this. From that data that is all kind of in an awkward way, get a pivot table organized by location, product ID, sales representative, and the sales amount by month here at the top. That's our goal. So that's what we are going to build. Going to try to be fast because we are running out of time and I don't want to keep you too long. Our begin, we started a little bit late because I had a difficulty here setting up things with Teams. Okay, so I'm going to create a new Excel file here. I'm going to call it final report. So we are starting from scratch. And let's get our data. So we need to, in fact, connect to 2 different sets of data. First one, and I didn't tell you, but your Power Query is in the data tab, and get and transform data, this group here, and the queries and connections is where your tools are to start using Power Query. So get data from file, from workbook. Let's get the prices first. And let me just come here to copy the path so it's easier for me, faster. And the product prices, connecting. Now we have this dialog box here. It's telling us this is the file, and in this file we found, because now it is an Excel file, Power Query can give you tables, can give you sheets, can give you named ranges. at least these 3 different elements. We only have one sheet. In that sheet, we don't. We have one table with the same information. So if you have a table, use the table. It's just easier and simpler like that. Okay. If not, then we would go with the sheet. That's what we are going to do the next connection. And now we have our table. It already created the source, the navigation step, and the change type, like always. Let's see if it got it right. The product type text, the description is text, and it's telling me that the price is a whole number, but it could be a decimal number. So just change it to decimal or to currency, one of the two, okay? Replace recurrent step, yes, because I don't want to change to whole number and then after to price. I just want the price step. And now let's go close and load to. And I don't need to really see the prices in my file. If I want to see the prices, then I'll say load to a table. If not, we say load, only create a connection. Okay, only create connection means Power Excel will keep the data on the background, but it does not display the data for us on a sheet. Okay, that's what it is. We have the data there. It names the step table, the query table 1. We can rename our query, right click rename and put prices here. So that's the name of our query. It's easier for us like that to know what the query is about. And now let's go and connect to this other folder where I have these 2 files. Data, get data from file and then from folder. And let's get the path from here. Control-C, Control-V. Okay. And it gives me this option. Now, I want to combine and transform my data. And you will see that because because we are connecting to a folder, what Power Query will do is, okay, so you are connecting to a folder. I'm assuming all the files in that folder are kind of the same. So explain me what you want me to do with just one of those files. It will be the sample file. We'll call it the sample file. Explain me what you need me to do with that sample file, and then I'll make sure I'll do the same thing with all the other ones, and then I'll combine everything together into just one of the files, just one table. Okay, so combine and transform. In this case, like I said, we only have a sheet 1, and there's no table, so we need to choose that. And it says here sample file, use the first file. That's fine. Let's do OK. And let's wait a little bit to see what Power Query comes up with for us. It always tries to guess and be very nice and gentle and tries to move ahead of what we need. Again, change type, already did some type changes, but my columns are not even what I need them to be. So I'm going to take that out of there. And the step before, I can see that I have a column with the source name, which is in fact the file name. And then I have the information from that file. And I have here one file for January, one file for February. And then I have everything there like we saw it was on the sheet. The only thing is that we have this null value representing the blanks or the empty cells. It's not the same thing as blank, but just let's leave it like that for now. And here on the left, that we can minimize or go do this. So on the right, we have the applied steps on the query that we are working on. And the query that we are working on, we can see it here on the left. When we have different queries, we can select and move from one query to another one. There's the prices one. This
Celia,
is the sales. Yeah.
is it possible to zoom in a little bit,
Yes.
please?
In fact, here I can do one shortcut in Power Query, Control Shift Plus. In Power Query, you can do like that. Is it good enough like this?
Yeah, good enough.
Okay. Thank you for letting me know, Vivek. So I was saying that we created the sales reports query, and it was named automatically like that because that's the name of our folder. We get some steps here, but we also got a bunch of other queries here. And they are all organized inside one folder that's a kind of a folder of queries that says transform file from sales reports. And then we have helper queries. And so all these queries are created here automatically by Power Query. On the next meetup, we will have Dick Moffat talking about custom functions in Excel. Oh, not in Excel, in Power Query. And in fact, we have a function here. We have a parameter here. We are not going to talk about it. All you need to know today, if you are not used to work with Power Query yet, is when you connect to a folder, Power Query creates these things here automatically. And the important one you need to know is this transform sample file, because this is the query where we teach Power Query to what we need it to do with all the files that we have in the folder. So it's like the name says, transform sample file. Okay. So we were here, and what I'm going to tell you now is come here to the transform sample file and do the work here with just one file. And then the other one will make sure to combine as many months of data you have. Let's see what we have here on the right. We have a date that step for the source, and the navigation is find the source. Inside the file, tell me where to go. It says go to sheet 1. Okay. So, and then again, promoted headers. It went ahead and decided to promote headers, but I'm going to say, I don't want the headers yet because my headers are not so ready. So let's go and remove this step here and keep only these two. And now from here, you probably could go many different ways. And like the same way it happens when we are working with Excel. Two different users may have the exact same problem, the exact same data, or same workbooks, and find the solution using different formulas or different features in Excel. In Power Query, same thing can happen. You can, two different users may decide to go two different ways. So the way I'm going to do it is just one way of doing it, okay? So remember, we want to have our data organized in columns. First column, we have a location, but then we don't have, the names are not repeated in all the rows. So that's easy to do. We can come here, select the column, and then in transform, for example, we have the fill down button, fill and then fill down. Just like that, it repeats everything down. So we're good with that. This is solved. Now, let's go and see what else we can do. Our first, I'm going to close this one so that we have more room. Our first row has nothing else other than this. So we can't, other than the location, right? So now my goal now is to get to a point where I can give names to the columns. That's my next goal. I'm going to remove the top row. And again, maybe there were other ways of doing it, but that's the way I'm choosing to do this now to solve this problem. And I'm getting closer to what I need. I have here these are my products, product codes. Here will be the sales representative names, and this is the location. So let's try, and this would be good for column names. So let's try and promote the first row to headers now. We could do that. Use first row at home tab, use first row as headers. Okay, there we go. So this is good. Here it's not Ontario. The first column, I can rename it as location. And the column 2 will be the column for sales rep or salesperson, salesperson name, just vendor name, whatever you think it's best for your scenario. And again, it changed the type. I'm going to take that out for now and delete. And we can delete name steps that are behind us, no problem. It was not the last step, but I can remove it. And it's getting shaped. There's still this. So for example, every time we get a new location, we get this row that we don't need. And we can see, we can observe that this row has always a null cell in this second column. Also, the other empty rows have nulls in this column. So what I can do, and I need to make sure to be sure that my data is always organized like following this structure, I can filter this column and say, take the nulls out, okay? It creates a formula here. Each sales rep different than null. That's good. So much better. It's looking much better now. These first two columns now I was going to say that I could change the type now here. Maybe we can do it later. There's only one thing more. This table is not really in tabular form. And I learned recently kind of a trick, an easy way of knowing if it's in the tabular format or not. And it goes like that. I choose one value, for example, Ontario, and go to the data column and ask, is Ontario a location? Yes, it's a location. So this column is correct it's correct. I mean, it's good to have our data in a tabular format or layout. Is John a sales rep? Yes, it is. Is 150 an E001? No, that doesn't make any sense. What is 150? 150 is the quantity sold by this person of that product. So in fact, what I need is a column to tell me the quantities and the column to tell me the product ID or code or product name or whatever is good for our situation. So we say that these columns are pivoted and we want to unpivot them. And to do that, we want to create that long boring list that I told you about before. Select the two columns, right click, and do unpivot other columns. And just like that, it creates, so for example, John, one row for each one of the Johns for each one of the products. So one John, 3 rows, one for each product, and each column, each row, and each product has the corresponding quantity. Now we can rename, the attribute will be the product or product ID or product code, and the value will be, for our case, will be the quantity. We can rename that. And finally, we can, from here, we could change the data type here, but remember, I'm not working on my final report. My final query. I'm working on the transform sample file query. I'm working on a query that is learning what to do with all the files just by working with a sample file. So now that I'm happy with how my file looks like, I can go to the sales reports. And there's no point of changing the data type here because then it won't be carried over to the other one. So let's do that here. So here we have, let's go back, let's close, not go back, but let's close this. We are in the sales reports. It's our main query for this data gathering, where in this case, January and February data is being gathered in just one table. It's looking good. We have our columns. We can take advantage of our first column that has the name of the file, because from here is where I can get the name of my the month the file refers to. In fact, is the only place I didn't have that information inside my Excel file. So I'm going to take this column with the file name and extract the month from here. And I'm going to transform, extract first characters. It's one way of doing it. And I know that year dash month always makes 7 characters. So I'm going to extract the first, and just bigger here, extract the first 7 characters. Okay. And there we go. And now we can change the name, or I can come here and change the name there. Well, let's just rename here and do month. This will be the name of my column. And the only thing missing is just making sure the data types are correctly set up, because you already know that if they aren't, then your pivot tables may not work and so forth. So let's keep this as a month. We could try dates, but let's not go like there today. Because we don't have a day. Anyways, just keep it as a text. Location is text. Sales rep is text. Product is text. I could do this all at once if I wanted to. Quantity is a whole number. And now I still need the amounts, and I need the prices to calculate the amounts of each sale. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come here to, not to file, to home, close and load to. I'm going to choose to only create a connection, meaning I don't want to see that data yet on my file. And now I'm ready to combine these two queries into just one table that has the product and the price and everything together. So how can I do that? One way of doing it is to come here to data, get data, combine queries, and merge the two queries. I have a lesson in my YouTube channel. The last lesson there is about the different types of merges. We will just see one merge today, but if you are curious, you can watch that lesson and see all the other types there. We have to choose the first table and the second table, and it's important in the order in which you should choose them. I'm going to choose the sales reports table as my first table, or the left table can also be called, and the prices table, from the prices query, as my second table. And from the join kind, I have all these options here. And by default, it gives us the left outer, and it's the most commonly used. And it's about, it says here, all from first matching from second. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for these products in my first table, match the code to what it can find on this column on the second table, and from there find the price. Okay, let's go. Okay. So I get this column with each cell has a small table inside. I just need to go and expand this and choose which columns I want to pick from my prices table. I don't need the product ID because it's already here, product column. I could bring the description and the price. Okay. I don't need this. Okay. It already came with the correct data type. And finally, our last step here is to find out the amount from the information about quantity and price. So there's different ways of doing it. One of them is to add a column, add a custom column. And in that column, what I want to do is name for that column. It could be amount. What do I want to do to have in that column? I want to have the quantity. I just double clicked in this list of fields here on the right, times and the price. Now that I have the price column, okay. And we have it there. We need to going to tell currency. It's the data type there, or decimal if you prefer. And that's it. We finally got what we needed. The good news is it took us a little bit of work, but you just need to do it once. Okay, so now we are ready to come here to home. Let's see, let me just check here on my cheat sheet if I didn't forget anything. I don't think I did. Well, if I did, I'll notice that. Home, close and load to, and just to make things different now, I'm going to load directly to a pivot table. So instead of getting a table first and then create pivot tables after that, and usually it's what we do, or load it to the data model, that situation I told you before, that where you could have different tables and then create, relate them and so forth. Just to show you that you have also this option here, you can, I think I forgot to say which sheet, so it went to a new sheet by default. And there we go. Now we have, let me just bring this like that and make this bigger for you. So now we are ready to start creating our pivot table, and we can just pick and choose our fields from here. I'm going to put the months in the columns. I'm going to put the location in the rows, and then the product, or it could be the product and then the sales rep, or the other way around, whatever you think makes more sense to you. And then we have the amount that we want to calculate the sum. It already recognizes the sum for us. We could change the title of that column, all the nice good stuff you know how to do with Power Pivot Tables. If not, if you don't feel comfortable, that's another topic of Excel you should think of learning. Pivot tables, and there you go. There's the pivot table report, and we are now ready to just test this with a new, let's go and save this file. And let's go and test with the new data. So you see here we have data for January and February. Let's pick a new month data. So from this folder, I'm going to copy. I have other files here. I'm going to place a new file in the folder to where we are pointing our queries to. So now we should get a new column for March. Let's right click and refresh, or refresh data, refresh all. There you go. It's done. So the work is done only once. And the work is done only once. I stopped sharing. No, that's not what I wanted to do. I just wanted to turn my camera on. Let's go share the screen again. The work is done only once, and then if it's done properly, you can just right click, refresh, and have everything. Just make sure your data is put on the place it needs to be, and refresh, update your queries, and your reports are done. You don't need to keep doing things manually month after month after month. You don't want to do that. There's better things to do with your time. So that's pretty much what I wanted to show you. Going back to our PowerPoint, just a couple more of slides, 2 slides or so, just final things. So things that it's important for you to know if you are taking the first steps. Make sure you know what an Excel table is. It's very important, and what you can get from them. Make sure you know a little bit of data validation, as you remember, Nabil Murad will tell us about that at the end of this month. Make sure you know a little bit about named ranges. I didn't use them today, but it's useful when you want to, for example, make the paths to your files dynamic so that you can choose 1 month and everything is redirected to the correct folder. Make sure you know the Excel formulas you need to know for your reports, whatever reports they are, and understand data types and understand a little bit of pivot tables. Power Query is easy to learn. I don't think it's too difficult, and just by knowing how to connect to a file, how to connect to a folder, and eliminate the columns you don't want, and maybe just extract the first characters of one column or split by delimiter, just by doing that, it's very easy, and you can save so much time in your routine tasks. Practice and be curious. Always think there must be a way, or there must be a better way than the one I'm doing now, and try to improve that process, and use all the opportunities that you can to force yourself to learn solving a problem. And a good way to learn is also trying to teach what you learn to someone else. There are some resources here, 2 learning opportunities coming soon. I told you about the Power Query, the Global Excel Summit coming up. There's I'm delivering a master class about Power Query fundamentals in Excel. We will explore different types of connections and a lot more than we did today. It's about 6-7 hours of class, so a lot more than we saw today. And in my YouTube channel, I'm focusing on delivering content related to Excel report automation. So if that's a topic that is interesting to you, make sure to go there. You can find it as Celia Alves Solve Excel. Subscribe there. You can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, all around, and we can connect there. And that's it. I'm sorry for the late starting today and the extra 20 minutes or so that we have here. Let me know if there's questions.
That was great, Celia. This is Dick here. Thank you very much. That was great.
Thank
I
you,
should
Dick.
let you know that you said I'm doing my thing on custom functions on the 19th of January,
Yes.
but Gasper Kamenisek, I'm not sure exactly how to spell it,
Pronounce.
but there's only one Gasper out there in the Excel community. Gaspar is doing a session on custom functions on the 12th. He's an old friend of mine from Lithuania, of all places. So you might want to search that down on the internet as well.
Yeah, I think it's on the Saudi Arabia meetup group, Excel meetup group. So if you want to check out that meetup group, there's also London's meetup group. There's Vancouver's Excel meetup group. At least these ones that I know that are promoting, are delivering Excel sessions regularly. Always great speakers. Make sure to go and check what they are.
But what I'm saying also, Celia, is that the issue is custom Power Query functions. And that's what both Gaspar and I are talking about, which is a great addendum to what you talked about today. And
yes,
so
for those of you for whom the topic was not so interesting because you are a lot more advanced, I'm sure that the next step for you, if you are not there yet, is about, okay, so now how can I make, it's like creating, and I'm not going to tell more than that because it's just a kind of a tip for you to understand if you don't know what custom functions are. It's like, you know, when Power Query created that helper query to know what to do with each file of the folder, and then combine everything is knowing how to do that for other things that you may need besides dealing with separate files.
Exactly.
So sometimes you may need from one set of data do something with just the portion that relates to one location. So you can create your custom function in Power Query to instruct Power Query what is it about you want to do about just that location, and then Power Query will be able to replicate that for the other locations. Anyways, that's the next session, and Dick will tell you about it much better than I.
Oh, no.
What else? Thank you so much, everyone, for staying up this extra time. I hope it was useful. That's what I wanted to hear from you. Was this useful for any of you? Is someone here for whom Power Query is a new topic? Is it something that you are looking forward to start using in the near future? That was my goal here. I hope it served at least some of you, is to make you aware, because this amazing tool is available out there. And what I notice is that a lot of people don't know that it's available. Other people know that it's available, but they don't know where to start. There's a lot of content online. Just start doing something. And then depending on the needs you have at your specific task, your specific work, you will find a way of building your queries.
Yeah, I'm getting in chat window a lot of good feedback.
Thank you. That's great to know. Happy to. That still purposes to be useful for someone. One of the things that I've been worried about not worried, but it's something that I've thought of. I thought a few times about the Excel Meetup group, is that when we first started the group, and Dick and Vivek, who are in the screen with me at this point, and you feel free to turn on your video cameras now so that we can chat a little bit before we go. If you remember, Dick and Vivek, one of our first conversations, the creation of the group was mostly about creating awareness of what Excel can do for people and companies, and helping people to establish good practices when using Excel. And in the past few months, we have a lot of high-end, I would call it, content, which is great, is amazing, I mean, I can't tell you how grateful I am for the content that we have had the opportunity, the things that we have had the opportunity to learn from the great experts, the amazing experts around the world. But I've been always worried about what the Excel users in our community who are not ready for that type of content yet, and need some kind of more, I don't like to say basic, but some Excel content that helps them move forward from the stage where they are now. And remember, I was on the pre-VLOOKUP stage for 20 years. And and I can't remember really what made me learn VLOOKUP at some point, but what I'll try to do, and that's what I'm trying to do with my YouTube channel, because I see that there's a lot of demand here on the Meetup group for more advanced content. And again, I don't like to classify content as advanced or basic or intermediate, because what is advanced to each one of us is what we still don't know. So if I don't know VLOOKUP, VLOOKUP is advanced to me. But if I know that and I don't know the let function or function that it became available now, maybe that's considered advanced to me. Anyways, what I'm trying to say is I'll do my best to keep providing some content to help those who need more detailed explanation about the core concepts in Excel to help them move forward. Okay?
Well, I
Yes,
find
yeah.
myself, Celia, if I may say, Dick, is over the years, I realized that once you get past the intro class, it's a disaster because everybody knows, has all different levels of skill, right? And all you really can do is say, boom, here it is. You're adults, take it and learn what you can. And in effect, that's what we want here. In effect, I think people want a fire hose of information, right? And the other thing that we need to do as much as possible, and if I might say, I'm going to do this, is all my code and everything is going to be available to you all after I do my session. And we should be doing that kind of thing, for when our presenters should have, good examples for people. But you can never get a group of 50, 60 people
Homogeneous.
and satisfy
Yeah.
them all. That's all.
No, it's, I think one very important step for any Excel user is to leave that stage where I was for 20 years, where I thought that I knew it all. Oh, I know Excel. It's about combining
yeah.
the few cells with a formula, and that's it.
Yep.
And I genuinely thought that was it. So the most important step for anyone using Excel is to have the opportunity to have a moment in their lives where they realize, wait a minute, there's more to it than I thought there was. And accept that we don't know. In fact, there's someone saying up there, there's only two infinite things in life, universe, and that's kind of what happens. So there's a lot in Excel to learn. Always there is something new to learn in Excel. And once you are able to get that stage, then you will become unstoppable, because from then on, you will always be unsatisfied with what you do, and you will always look for the next step, the next feature, the next thing to learn in Excel. And that's what helps you. That and the opportunity to solve problems is what helps you moving forward. That's
Yes,
my...
Celia, just another event I added a note in our chat section.
Yes.
Is a Power Platform bootcamp that we are organizing in February, which is related to Power Query as well. And also the reason I put it over there is also to promote, but at the same time, there are many world leaders that are right now 21 or 23 people who are remaining. They are world leader in their area. So this is a free event. We are not charging for anything for this event, and they can be the owner of this Power Platform Bootcamp in their local area. Right now, we have 70 location already registered, and last year we had a 4,000 people attended. This time we are expecting more.
Oh, wow.
So if you want to be a leader and go and check virtual bootcamp, and if your city is not registered over there, you can register your city.
Thank you,
So,
Vivek. Yeah, and if you know how to use Power Query in Excel, you will know how to use Power Query in Power BI, in Power Apps, and all that. And you will be able to move forward to other technologies. And there's plenty of room for people to grow, and plenty of opportunity currently with building solutions in this type of technology. So take advantage of what is available for you for free. It's work done by people volunteering around the world, people just sharing what they know and giving their time and their knowledge to help us all. And that's how I was able to learn many of the things I know now, and I'm just trying to return a little bit of that to other people.
Yeah, and
okay.
One final note is for Toronto area, I'm inviting speakers. So
Okay.
if you are good in Power Query, DAX, it doesn't matter. It doesn't need to be Power BI related because it's a common language, right? So
or even if in the other Power Platform tools, right? Because some people here may feel comfortable with other tools.
Yeah, so I'm inviting openly to anybody who would like to present.
Yeah, reach out to what's the best thing to submit their proposals, Vivek?
It is on the website itself. You can go to
Okay,
the
so
location and submit your proposal.
take note of that link.
Yeah.
And make sure to propose your presentations if you are in conditions to share something with the community.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else? Vivek, you were saying something?
No. I was just
What?
going through the question. There was one question last from Ken, but
Office 2019. I don't have Office 2019. Any suggestions where to get a good price on Office 2019 Pro? I have Office 10, 13, and 16. Office 2016 is good enough for you to learn and work with Power Query. That's what I've been using in many of my clients. Yeah. It's good enough. It doesn't have, for example, when we are working with Power Query Editor, there's IntelliSense now going on there that guesses the formulas for us and helps us a little bit. You don't have that in 2016, but the generality of the tools, the transformations that you can do with your data, they are all there. So you don't need to.
Yeah, Celia, it is good. Actually, this question is very good question. Even though you have 2016, you may not see Power Query or Power Pivot. You have to, if you can show very quickly, you need to go to sometimes, like if it is an older version and all, sometimes you need to turn it on from adding.
Yeah, so I should my screen here. So there's a link that I think someone put out there where to, but the information goes in my file as well. I'll send you an email with my PowerPoint and the information where to save, where to get the add-ins for Excel 2010 and 13. If that's your case, you will get that information on my file. And to get, if you have 2010, 2013, you need to go to that website and there's instructions. You need to install your add-in, and Power Pivot may not be available right away for you. Power Pivot you will need that if you start creating data models. Help me here, Vivek. It's options. So file options and then add-ins, and then I believe it's
this. Yeah, you can do it from here also, but
yeah.
it is on developer also, where you have developer tab at the top.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
the same.
It's shallower, yeah.
So developer
and adding. See, yeah. So Excel.
Oh, here, yeah. Okay,
No,
and then from here. No, these are the not the common add-ins. These are the other ones online. You get online. Excel add-ins.
Next one.
And then com add-ins. Okay.
There you go.
So it's the Excel add-ins. I don't have it here. The Power Query,
it's
Power
a com
Pivot.
add-in.
It's a com add-in.
Yeah.
Oh, here, Power Pivot.
Clear as mud.
You will get it. Oh, goodness. Where are you here?
I'm getting dizzy.
So that's there. Power Pivot, Microsoft Power Pivot for Excel. It's where you will be able to activate your Power Pivot if you need to. Okay.
Thank you,
but like I said, 2016, if you have it, it's great. And if you create a query, a file with queries in a file in a more recent version, and then you go back to open in an older version, you will get a notification saying that the queries were created with a newer version, but usually it works well. Whatever the work you did on a more recent version will work well on an older one. There's few cases where it may not be the case, but that's what Microsoft claims, is that it's backwards compatible, like they like to say. That you create with a newer one, but then you will be able to use it to work on another computer with an older version of Excel. Any other questions?
Celia, it's Dick again. You were getting kind of philosophical at the beginning. I like to be a little teeny bit philosophical. When I was learning Excel over decades ago, when I was young and enthusiastic and smarter and all that stuff, I really made a point in my learning of Excel and Access and everything to take on projects I didn't know how to do. All right. Somebody said, "Can you do that?" Oh yeah, I can do that. And that taught me more than anything, rather than just staying cautious and safe, right? And yet at the same time, I had to try to accomplish whatever I could as quickly as possible, so it saved the client money, or I got paid enough money for my effort. So it's a sort of a saw off there between the two, and that's my philosophical point. Is this? Hey, I don't know how to do that, but I think it can be done. And the more you know these technologies, you're better at saying, yeah, I know it can be done, I just don't know how. And then you're forced to figure it out. And that I found that taught me more than anything, rather than sitting on my laurels. But now I'm old and fat and ugly, and I just sit on my laurels. Yeah.
Yeah, everybody has one time they got some epiphany or something where they started Excel, and I want to share mine. Mine was VLOOKUP. Means I was blown away by,
you're not alone.
Oh my God, VLOOKUP, how it is happening. So that was my starting point for Excel. And I was using Excel for almost 2 years, basic things and all. But as soon as somebody showed me that, this is 18 years ago, but somebody showed me, you VLOOKUP, you can find from different table, different place. And then I was there is no need for VLOOKUP use, I was using it.
So you
that was me
really
in 2014. That was me in 2014 or 15, something like that. And two things that for me it was VLOOKUP and then VBA. And when I started seeing, oh, you can make Excel send emails through Outlook, what? And, okay, so I never stopped searching, and I still am. I don't know. I know very little. The more you know, the more you understand that you don't know anything, or there's too much more, a lot more for you to learn.
To me, we've all been stuck inside for months and months, and I've been watching YouTube about the universe, right? And there, the idea of dark energy. This applies. Dark energy is something that means everything in the universe is moving away from it, all directions, right? And it's always moving away. There's no center point, right? That's Excel, because the more you get into it, the more you realize you don't know, like you just said, Celia. And it just, but look at this and look at that. And when you bring in macros and you bring in Power Pivot and you bring in Power Query, that just gets bigger and bigger. It's just, and that's exciting in a way, but it can get frustrating because you're never an expert, right? And
you never know everything. You can never say you know everything about Excel.
But there are people who do, unfortunately, But
but that's about that changing point I was telling about. The important point in your Excel career is when you realize that you don't know everything and you will never know.
Big one.
Celia, I need to leave now. Thank you so much. It was great. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you too. Yeah.
Nice to see you. Thank you.
I'm going to stop the recording, and we can just say our goodbyes. I could stop the recording. I have stopped the recording before. So there we go. Stop recording, and